these things are useful, and some of the stuff you actually need when you play Magic. So today I'm going to look at that and just show you guys what I have. So, I mean, if you want to start to play Magic, you know what stuff to get, and just see what I have, what my things are. So I'm actually going to start with a thing called a Playmat, and this is the thing I have rolled up here, and when I roll it out, you see there it is like a mat with a picture on it. And this mat is its purpose. I think we can have it as a thing to put the stuff on while I do this video. This mat is something you put on the table that you would or are gonna play on. Its purpose is for protecting your cards from the table that you're playing on. All tables you play on are not always the most clean tables. Often they are clean because the owners of the store where you play at, or where the event you're playing at is, they often know people are very fond of their cards and don't want them to get dirty or sticky. I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have drinks with them and then spilling them on the table, and the table gets dirty and sticky. So I think I think that's why you have a playmat. And the surface on this playmat is kind of smooth, so stuff moves pretty easily on this mat. As you see here, I'm showing you with the card, so it isn't much resistance when moving stuff on this mat. So I think that's a useful thing as well with this map. And the most important thing, I think every Magic player is they know they want to have stuff that they like aesthetically. So these playmats can have all kinds of pictures on them. And of course I chose mine because I like it. I chose it not because I like the bug, but it's kinda nice. But I like the color purple. So this mat is one of the most purple looking, or it is the mat that have the most purple in it, I think at least. And I'm a big fan of colors as well, so it's kind of nice with a little trail here with colors. So I think this is a great playmat. I like it a lot. This is the purpose of the playmat, to both have a smooth surface to play on This is a deck box. You're supposed to have your deck here. Now I took it out because I thought it would be nicer looking when it was empty. You have your deck here to protect it and easier to carry. You don't want to have like rubber bands around your deck because that could destroy your cards. So you have to put it in here to protect it from when people bump in it. It's pretty hard. And if it rains, for example, and your backpack get wet, you don't want the deck to get wet as well, so they can be pretty useful with that stuff as well. This deck box is quite fancy. It has like a dragon scale kind of look to it, but you can have whatever deck box you want. I just picked out my fanciest one now to show off. No, but I have very not ugly, but just common deck boxes that are just plastic and is nothing special. These are the deck box you take with you when you're playing, so you can look cool. So yeah, a deck box is very useful and one of the stuff you definitely need if you are gonna play Magic. And this is also one of the things I would say almost definitely need. Because if you don't have this with you when you play, you always ask people for this. Like, can I borrow this? Can I please borrow one of your things? And it is dice. The most common dice you use is a 6-sided die for just every kind of things. You have counters, all kind of counters to track things. Like, oh, this guy have a +1/+1 counter on it. This guy has a suspend counter on it. So you just use these to track. Like, oh, he has one counter on it, and you put that on the card. So you often have like, he has a counter on him. Whatever counter you want. There are so many counters in Magic. So it depends. But dice are always useful to have with you. And people always ask you to borrow when they don't have one with them. This is also a thing I would strongly recommend to get if you want to start playing Magic. Often people are very nice about borrowing dice if you ask nicely. But in these times with COVID and it's always nice when people have their own dice with them, so you don't have to borrow them, because often people forget to give them back, and your die pile here, I have very many die, and it's okay to lose some of them, but it slowly disappears, and that kind of sucks. So I mean, it's always nice when people have their own dice with them. I also have a bigger dice here. 20-sided die. And this kind of dice isn't used for counters and stuff like that. They are more commonly because your max life, or the life total you start with in Magic, is 20, and that's perfect. So when you take a damage, you go to 19 and so on. So these kind of dice are very useful to track. I used for a long time these kind of dice to track my life and the opponent's life, because that is, I mean, when you play casually you don't really have to, but it can be useful because sometimes one of you forget to count a point of damage. If your opponent forgets and you have him on 16 and he has himself on 18, you're like, oh man, I have you on 16, didn't you lose life that time, and so on. So in that way it is useful to track your opponent's life total sometimes, to help each other out for so the game is properly played, you could maybe say. I don't know. I just think it's more fun when you actually play properly and really try to see how it goes. Not that I'm not a very competitive person in that I want to win, but I still want to get better at the game, so in that way I want to play the game properly. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. But yeah, this is one of the more important stuff to have, the die. And I think you could actually just start with these two things. You might actually need one other stuff for your cards, but that kinda depends on what game mode or format in Magic the Gathering you play. And by format that means how you can play all kinds of format in Magic the Gathering. And it's kind of hard to explain, I realize here, when I'm sitting here and want to explain for you guys, but I feel like I would do that very well. But you can play with the new cards only. For example, I think this is the easiest format to explain. Magic the Gathering releases cards 4 times a year into a format called Standard. And Standard is where you only get to play the newest cards, the cards that have been released for the latest 1.5 or 2 years. So you only get to play the newest cards there, and no older cards. That is, for example, the Standard format. But there are other formats where you get to play older cards and so on, so there are quite a lot of formats in Magic the Gathering. I don't personally play Standard, so I play older formats. But that is, for example, a format that exists. And in these older formats you might need some other stuff as well. So here we have a card. You might be like, yeah, of course you need cards to play, but I didn't have the card with this in this video because I think everybody understands that Magic the Gathering is a card game and you need the cards to play. that is something called inner sleeves, where I have here, and outer sleeves, or just sleeves. So I wanted to show you guys what that is, because if you're not like card game player, or I don't know if you often like meet or see this kind of thing, you realize people are like hardcore with their cards when you see stuff like this, and really want to take care of them, which is good because some of the cards are very expensive. So I take out one inner sleeve here, and the purpose of an inner sleeve is this. I put the card into like a little opening here. So like this. And now you see the card is protected by the plastic. And now I have a special kind of inner sleeve that you actually seal up by putting it, kind of missed there, like this. Most inner sleeves don't have this thing, but I buy these because sometimes the card slide out of the inner sleeve, so it is I think very useful to have the thing that you can seal up the inner sleeve with. And now you have protected your card. And now you might ask, but isn't this enough? Well, sort of. I mean, you could play with just inner sleeves, but there is one thing that is a problem with inner sleeves, and that is that they're often clear, like you can see the back of the card. And in most cases that is fine, because Magic cards only have their basic back of their cards. But actually some cards have a backside on them where the card is double faced, so they have their usual picture on the front but also a picture on the back. And that is a problem, since when you have your deck, you can't just see which card you're gonna draw by the back if a card has two sides on them. So you need something that covers the back so you don't see if the card has normal back or a different kind of back, or if the card is two-sided. So because of that, you also have something called just usual sleeves, or I never hear people call them outer sleeves or something like that, so I think people just call them sleeves. And the sleeves you put them like this. And here is why I have an inner sleeve that are sealed in the bottom, because often the cards otherwise slide out when you push it down here. And voila! Now you can see the back. is fine to have both cards with the normal back on them and backs that have pictures on them or are two-sided. Very, very important actually when you're playing Magic, because otherwise you are seen as cheating. So this is quite important if you play with Magic cards that have two sides on them. And maybe you also ask, but why do you have both an inner sleeve and this outer sleeve? Can't you just use the outer sleeve, because then you both protect your card and conceal the back of the card? And to that I answer, yeah, you're absolutely correct. You can absolutely only use the outer sleeve to protect your cards, but there are actually, as I mentioned, cards that are quite valuable in this game and costs a bit of money. So this outer sleeve isn't perfect in protecting your cards, because stuff can fall into, like on the top here, so like dirt, or actually your card can slide out of this kind of sleeve. Not very common, but can happen. So people often use both an inner sleeve to protect the card when dirt gets in, or yeah, it's often dirt, like small things. So people often use both, but you could only use the outer sleeve, absolutely. I mean, now when you're so used to using both, you feel kinda naked or the card feels kinda naked when you don't have both. And when you want to like keep the value of the card, you often are quite like you really try to protect your card, because you don't want it to lose value. I mean, I don't know if I think many people heard about like the crazy Pokemon card prices a while ago, and the prices really depend on how good condition the card is in. So I mean, sometimes it can be a lot of money. If the card is in good shape or bad shape, that can be like a lot of money. The difference can be a lot of money. So it can be important for the value of the card to protect it. So in that sense, it's defensible, I think. And now for the last thing. I would call this thing a luxurious accessory, or not accessory, like not an accessory but a gadget, or I don't know what to call it. This thing is like a note, a thing you take notes with. Often you use like this to track your life with, but in the game you sometimes need to take notes that cards, I mean, some cards make you take notes. If you, for example, see an opponent's hand, you need to write them down. So you like write something to remember which card the opponent have. example, it actually target opponent reveals their hand. So you write it down to remember the rest of the cards. This thing you absolutely don't need. You can have like a normal pencil and a piece of paper, and you can track your life with the 20-sided die. This thing I bought like 2 years maybe after I started playing Magic, and I really didn't need it. I just bought it because it's very useful to have something that can track so many things at the same time. So, in a sense, I like to have it, but you really don't need this one. And you push a button there to make the text disappear. So, this is something you don't really need. I mean, you look kind of fancy with it, but I think this is a thing that fits some people when tracking stuff, and for some people it's just like a useless gadget to have. But I just wanted to show you guys what I use and have when I play Magic, and what some stuff like everybody have. I would say a playmat, the sleeves, I showed you, a Techbox and a die. The dice is almost like 99% have this thing, like maybe 10% have such. You don't need it. But the other stuff is very common, or everybody uses it. I would say that some of the things are very necessary to play, or maybe not to play because you only need the cards to play, but they are important in the sense to protect, and the dice to track stuff. The protection of your cards is very necessary when you play with cards that have value to them, and when you want to sell them, you of course want to sell them for a good value or as well. So, but I'm not gonna harp on it. I hope you enjoyed this video, me talking about the stuff you might need if you're gonna start playing Magic. Since I always want more people to play Magic, I think it's a great game. It's fun and you can play it on your own level. I have, for the most time, had a positive experience with it. You meet a lot of nice people, and I have made some new friends through this game. I hope you got relaxed by this video, and as I said before, I hope you also enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking about Magic, since I'm a big nerd. So thank you for watching.